Hello and welcome to another CI breakdown video. Today we're going to see a dance with my colleague Sarah Sea Clarke. It is a rather long breakdown because there was a lot of interesting things going on. So I hope you will enjoy and let's go directly into it. So yes, here we are starting a little bit kind of feeling the space. That's something I do very often. Even though I know Sarah pretty well, we've been dancing a lot. And very often it's a bit nice to start kind of sensing a bit how the person responds to my movement before I'm even getting in touch. And here there's like a really subtle thing going with the arm, kind of reading direction, which is maybe nice to have a look. So maybe we'll start again here. You see like there's a fall and how the movement of the arm starts guiding. And what I mean is like the arm that I'm putting here is kind of following the trajectory of Sarah's movement and kind of indicating a certain kinetic connection that is kind of a prerequisite for any kind of lifting things. Yeah, here there's another little moment of kind of how to use leverage and rebound and redirect direction. We can have a look. So here I'm getting into kind of a, Sarah is offering a pelvis lift. And as you can see, my, in that case, kind of, so my left arm is dropping here and also the second arm is crossing the center line. You will also see that my head will start looking towards the bit the right. And this will indicate that my whole body mass will fall in that direction. Let's have a look at it. I'm going to slow it a bit down the video. So you can see like I'm starting to fall in that direction. And the fall also enabled kind of the second leg to generate some momentum in the direction of the fall. And this, whoop, I'm going to start swinging the leg back. And this will change the leverage of the leg, changing the direction, enable me to, without really stopping the movement, just redirecting it to the opposite side. And here we continue, right, and then go back to normal speed. And here we continue moving around. Yeah, here there's a nice entry that I don't do often, but it's nice to see how Sarah is doing it and how she kind of places her left arm here, which if I ask myself why would she do it, she has a certain connection here close to the wrist and my hip that she can see. And this, in a moment, you will see like hop, and then she brings the opposite leg behind. So she's probing the pelvis from both sides of the pelvis. She has the left arm here, and behind you can see here the leg. And this kind of wrap my pelvis from both sides, enabling her to smoothly shift the weight. It's a nice entry. Here there is a nice moment. Like of really seeing how kinetic energy translates from one side to the other. Can have a look at it, bring it back. So Sarah is here kind of starting to squat down and you see like her pelvis is much further than my pelvis and I'm leaning a little bit to her shoulder. You see kind of this is my pelvis, her shoulder, and her pelvis line is here, which is much lower. And now as I'm gonna have like a big fall here. Hop, this kind of moment. And if you can see, in order to prevent or to slow down a little bit my fall, I'm extending here my leg to the opposite direction. So I'm creating a lever that goes away from the direction I'm falling. And this in return enables me, and you will see it in a moment, we will slow down a bit the video, to really get a nice swing of the leg to propel me forward. Let's look at it again in slow motion. So I'm falling here. The leg goes a little bit backwards, and now it starts traveling forward, and you will see the leg will arrive here, kind of. Let's have a look. Yes, and this continues the whole trajectory of the kinetic energy. Now here I'm only going to point your attention to see kind of this arm here. And this is, in a weird way, it's like kind of a shoulder lift moment on the floor. It's kind of the similar mechanic, and I sometimes do it kind of in that case, like if I wouldn't place my arm there, maybe Sarah would be able to roll on my pelvis, but that because of where I'm placing the arm here, you will see that, imagine if this position will be standing, this will be kind of like an invitation, because I have one arm here, an invitation for her pelvis to come to my shoulder. Now we are on the floor, and something similar will happen, and you will see like kind of her pelvis ends up here on my shoulder, which is a bit of a weird position. It doesn't really make a lot of kinetic sense, but anyhow, dancing is not about making sense. Yeah, and it kind of slows a bit down the whole movement on the ground. Yeah, we are getting into kind of a little bit of a mess here, kind of trying to understand from what each one of us is aiming or looking for. And yeah, here there is just a little tiny moment. As you can see, it's kind of my pattern to always open to that side, but here you can really see it subtly happening through the head, which sometimes I'm doing it with the limbs, and sometimes it's just just with the movement of the head. You can see now. And now look at the head. You see the eyes. It's really clear how the head starts to arch backward. And with the eyes, I'm looking in this direction. And this little direction with the head really indicates where my body will go. So very often I'm using my head. Yeah, and this kind of leaves us in this interesting composition. I'll just go back a little bit backward. See, like my head is resting. Yeah, like this is nice frame to pause. So my head is resting on Sarah's shoulder, and her head is resting on my shoulder. So we have this kind of counter contact between our both heads, and let's say kind of the back part of the, kind of around the between the scapulas. And we can both lean backwards and fall backwards and enjoy kind of the rotational momentum that happens. And that's also because we are kind of arching towards one another, no? So that we are kind of creating this kind of support structure that enables the weight to be supported gradually. And then we can start falling down to the ground, all the way down. Yeah. Yeah, here we're probing a bit the hips of one another. And now you will see like an entry from the floor into a shoulder lift all the way up. Yeah, and we can go back because there's some interesting details here. So as you can see again, like for any shoulder lift, there needs to be one arm here, and you will see my second arm is somewhere here in order to be able to scoop the pelvis. Now, Sarah is already like starting to organize her arms towards me, and she's gonna use a very specific mechanics with the legs. I want you to see like how she's gonna go up with bend knees, and look at the timing of when she's gonna stretch the knees. So I'm just gonna slow down the video so you can see it. She's gonna come up and boom, extend the knees. Let's go back to see it. And we are going up, arms are swinging, and here, see the legs are still bent. And the reason for that, why it makes sense, is that when you bend your knees, you're reducing the leverage of that part of your body. So there is more weight closer to my own center line. Imagine if the legs would be kind of in that direction, there would be like a lot of weight falling away from my shoulder, and that would make it much more heavy. And now we're gonna continue the video, and in this moment, again, you can see now both legs are straight, which this kind of pull her weight towards my shoulder. Now there is certain advantage of this way of getting up, because again, it like kind of reduces the leverage, but you will see that it also prevents like a further direction going. I will play it in full speed, and I want you to see like how at the end of the lift there is a certain the direction is like it's gonna be kind of down, the direction of her pelvis, and this means that like the whole trajectory of the lift was all the way up into the shoulder, but not around the shoulder. So there will be like a moment of like a certain let's call it like a hiccup, like the movement doesn't continue. Let's see it in full speed one more time, and tuck. Now there is a break here. You see, like we are pausing on the shoulder. There's no momentum anymore. And now let's see what's going to happen next. Sarah started to extend her leg, and I'm taking that extension into rotation of my own body. And this is kind of what I think people call in contact the scarf movement. So we can have a look. No, it's a little bit more backward. Yeah, so here we have this stop. Now, the main thing that begins this whole sequence is here, that if you can see from having the pelvis, let's go one frame backwards, sorry. Yeah, okay, so now the pelvis is parallel to the ground. And the first thing that Sarah will do is she's gonna rotate her pelvis and will become more perpendicular to me. And you can see it already here. Now the pelvis starts to be more perpendicular to the ground. It's not fully there, and also she extends the leg. This will start generating leverage and movement. Sorry, I'm a little bit recovering from a cold. And this will start generating movement towards my left shoulder. You see, now she's fully perpendicular to the ground. She's really nicely arched on top of me, so it's not heavy. And her legs are kind of extending, both of her arms are extending. So she is also ready in case she's falling to catch herself. And then you're gonna see that I'm as here. Now the weight started to move enough from that side towards this side. Now her pelvis becomes again more parallel to the ground, which means if I'm not going to react to it, it's going to be very heavy on my shoulder. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start rotating myself. And, well, we have to come back here a little bit. And here, again, preparing my arm. See that I'm also already doing it instinctively, preparing the arm for the side of the pelvis that will arrive in a moment. Hop. And then you can see it here. Supporting the pelvis and the legs. And this is, again, as if we are just entering a shoulder lift again. So basically, she fell from the back part of my shoulder to the front part. And then we are again in the same mechanics of a shoulder lift, where I'm going to guide her pelvis one more time to that side of my shoulder. And we can enter again and again. Now, one thing that you can really see nice is how Sarah keep arching towards me. It's a bit blurry here, but you can see this is her arm. and her spine goes in kind of an arch in that direction. So she's pulling weight in the direction of the rotation, but she doesn't do it with the whole body. Like there is a part here, the arms are opposing the direction and the leg are guiding the direction. So, and this is very important for the flyer, because if here she wouldn't arch to the side, she will be too heavy for me to lift her, unless there is really, really huge weight discrepancy between us. But in that case, it will be too heavy. So she is really assisting in the way she aligns her body for me to be able to, again, one more time, get back to this perpendicular position. Which in principle, you can keep doing it forever, but it has a certain toll on the base, because it is still the weight of a full grown-up adult human. And now we are starting to spiral down. As you can see, like, of course, now she's much more like, this is kind of her spine and this is my spine. They are both kind of getting into a more parallel position. So it means that the shoulder ride is over and her pelvis is starting. And as you see, she extends the leg to prepare for landing, which is a very smart thing to do when you're coming off the shoulder. And we keep spiraling. Let's just see it one last time in full speed. The whole thing from the floor. Yes, and just look at all the comments I've just shared. So there's the stop here. The kinetic is over, then Sarah starts to extend. And we're going to use the fall of her pelvis to the front to generate momentum, to go all the way to the other side, into the floor. That's a very nice sequence. Then we get a bit into, this is a weird but interesting moment here. I place my left arm here. I think, and I have my second arm here. I think what I had in mind, if I remember correctly, I thought maybe I could go to the shoulder now, because potentially I'm kind of already, like, her shoulder line is close to my pelvis. And if I would swing this leg kind of here, we could enter a shoulder lift where she is basing me. But something else will happen, because you will see Sarah will kind of offer a pelvis lift instead. So she decides to bend, and then I see, okay, her spine is going there. And when you're going to go to a shoulder lift, you don't want to bend so much because it's going to be too heavy. So I understand I'm not going to the shoulder here. And you will see in a moment that Sarah will go all the way to the floor. So now her arms arrives to the floor, which creates something very specific, like the line of the pelvis. In a typical pelvis lift, if that's your legs, you want to have the spine more or less like this. But now we see Sarah's spine goes downwards, which means that if I would really commit to my own backspace, I would fall on her head. No, and I will show you what I mean by this in a second. So we have to come back a frame. Yeah. So very often when you get a shoulder lift, you start extending this leg in order to open to your backspace. That's enable the hip lift to continue in a certain direction. But if I will do this, and if I will kind of extend the leg here, then I will expose my back, and my back will I will end up falling towards Sarah's head. So what I'm doing instead, I'm doing a hip switch. Hop, you see now? Now I switch the hips, and I'm exposing the leg that is closer to my partner. And now instead of falling to my backspace, I can more easily shift my weight to this area and prevent kind of falling on her head. Up. And maybe I'll show it again in slow motion, because it's really nice, this idea of hip switch. So basically you get into a perpendicular position and then you expose the other leg. Have a look at it in slow motion. I'm falling using the momentum, and I'm using the momentum again, like this leg extends up in order to pull the pelvis into this perpendicular motion to open into the pelvis lift, into the hip switch. Then we go into some kind of soft transition to standing. We are both a little bit tired. We've been dancing like for 40 minutes with different people here, taking a bit of a rest, which is always nice. In CI, you can rest in dancing. Yeah, and this is, again, I really see my habits through these videos. I keep always rotating towards my left side very often. That's why I recommend people to watch, to record themselves dancing, my students, to see a bit our habits. Yes, there was some lifter that, yeah, this was kind of a silly attempt of me to fly that was really not possible. See, like, I place my arm, I extend my arm here on the shoulder, which, if Sarah's weight will be leaning more towards me, then we can pendulum in the opposite direction, but that's not happening. So then I'm just kind of, that's something I often tell to my students not to do, not to just kick up to lift, but to feel the shared weight. And as you would see, like, because there is no shared weight here, it's just me kind of trying to lift my leg in order to find myself on top, but that's of course not possible. Yeah, here I finally rotate to the other side, reversing my patterns a bit. Yeah, there is a nice attempt here of Sarah to use the backspace through the leg to get into a body surfing, but I'm kind of preventing it from happening. But you can see here, she falls into rotation and she's going to be kicking this leg. Potentially, this leg can arrive here. Wait, I keep seeing this this menu bar. Let's do it again. So again, the leg, she swings it, and it can arrive kind of here, and this will make the pelvis to travel kind of towards that side, so we can enter a kind of a body surfing situation. But I think my arm here kind of prevents it. So there is a bit of a frame of my arm that maybe blocks a little bit her pelvis. And then instead of arriving here, you will see that she will reverse the movement. You see up? Maybe I even did it deliberately. I don't know. Kind of my jiu-jitsu body sometimes jump into the contact body. But you see, my hand prevented her. And if the arm wouldn't be there, we could use her momentum to roll in that direction, kind of towards the camera. But again, I'm preventing it. Hop, blocking it a little bit, and then the momentum is scattered. We have to restart building momentum. Yes, here we are taking a bit of a rest again. Yeah, and now you can see something that let's have a look. It's just a very short moment of my strategy when I enter my bridge, low bridge here. So you will see, like, I don't have like a really flexible shoulder, so you can see that I'm using rotation. See that kind of angle? So this is like I'm laterally, I'm externally rotating my shoulder as much as I can, and this enables me to bring my fingers to the ground much earlier than if I would try to get them from here. So very often people think, okay, if I need to get to my backspace, I need to flex my arms, but that really depends. Even if you would have like really good shoulder mobility and you would be able to go here, it's still going to be much far, like here I'm already on the ground than here. So very often when I'm in this kind of positions, I'm using rotation to get quicker the connection to the ground that enables me to kind of redirect or go with the direction. I think in this case there is a bit of a redirection with the legs. Again, some kind of a hip switch to generate momentum. I mean, you can have a look on it. You see, like I'm lifting this leg, and this will enable the pelvis to get into a perpendicular position. Hop. I could continue it all the way, and rotate, but for some reason I go back kind of more using the arms. You can see leg, pam, and then this arm extends. Now you see there's still a lot of weight, but because I'm extending the arm and the leg, that supports the movement that enables me to come to the other side. Yeah. Here Sarah is doing like a nice jump. I don't do this very often, these kind of things, but it's really nice. You can see she's going to be jumping, a little jump, and the reason why it's very soft is because she is really orienting the side of her thigh here. And this is a very soft part, which is not that heavy to land on me. Yeah. Then we continue. Almost towards the end of our dance. Finding a bit of a solo moment here, using the fall from the contact for another little lift. You can see how I'm probing this lift. Like, hop. I'm already placing an arm here while we both fall backwards. And I allow my elbow, you see now I started to bend the elbow. So I'm enabling my weight really to rest on her shoulder, to feel her weight. And circling it towards the front, now starting to fall myself, preparing the second arm. And now we get into this kind of parallel position. You see her head here and her arm is the mirror of my head, which is behind and here. So like we are really in a mirror position. The second arm goes to my pelvis, and my second arm will go to her pelvis. Hop. And we have this really mirror, like we are mirroring each other. One arm here, I have the opposite arm. She has one arm here, and I have my arm, you will see it in a moment, on her pelvis. Now basically this position could be reversed. If her legs will fall to the ground, I could be in the air in the exact same position, but that doesn't happen in that case. And here we have the last kind of fall. This is just like a nice thing to see, like how, like why like a pelvis lift didn't work here. So we are starting to fall backwards. Sarah is kind of preparing a pelvis lift. But you can see that the way, like if we kind of try to imagine my pelvis is kind of here. This is her pelvis. I have way too much weight away from her center line. See? So then with me actually starting to lean, I'm just immediately sliding and falling. And that ends up with us on the floor. And this is kind of the end of this duet. I hope you enjoy the format. And like always, feel free to leave your comments, questions in the video, and I will try to keep supporting you from afar. All the best until the next breakdown.